If you're looking to become a police officer, a part of the hiring process is the oral board or the interview. Most of the time, you will sit in front of a panel of 3 people from the agency that you're applying to. They will ask you a series of questions. Some of these questions are standard interview questions. Some are specifically designed for law enforcement, and some will be scenario-based. I'm going to give you a blueprint to help you pass the oral board process. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you a blueprint to help you master any scenario-based question. These questions often prove the most difficult to answer, but if you follow my blueprint, I can assure you that you will excel on those questions. So stay with me until the end. You have to understand that first impressions are lasting impressions. Studies show that people will make a decision on who you are within a tenth of a second. Because of this, you must do the following when you walk into the interview. Pay attention. First, wear a shirt and a tie. Even better, wear a suit. Women, dress in business attire. Don't wear loud or bright colors and keep it professional. Your job is to stand out in a crowd. If you want the job, then stand out. You're not the only one applying for the job. Now, as you approach the panel, I want you to shake everyone's hand. Look them in the eye. You must show respect and you must show confidence. Remember, you're entering a profession where lack of respect and lack of confidence can get you hurt or give you a starring role in the next viral video, which often is not a good thing. Now, as you approach your chair, don't sit down without permission. It's very important. If the panel doesn't say anything as you're standing next to the chair, then ask for permission. But whatever you do, don't sit down without permission. This might sound silly, but it's a respect thing, and you need to stand out above the other candidates. When speaking with the panel, do your best not to swivel around in your chair. Watch your stress relievers. Now, stress relievers include fidgeting with your hands or picking imaginary lint off your clothing, looking around while speaking with the panel, and things of that nature. And while we're on the topic of looking around, you need to look them in the eye. Again, you're entering a career where confidence is everything. Now, understand that often when you're answering the questions, the member of the panel might be writing things down, right? And they're not going to be looking at you. But keep in mind, every so often, as they're writing their stuff down, they're going to look up from their paper and they're going to look at you. The last thing they want to see is an applicant who can't look them in the eye, who's looking around the room or looking down without confidence. Now, I've sat on oral board interviews, and after every couple of words that I'm writing down, I do look up to see what they're doing. So keep that in mind. So to help you answer some of the questions you're going to be asked, you need to do your homework. Number 1, study the agency. Know who your police chief is. If you're an out-of-towner, study the area. What are their policing philosophies? What specialty units do they have? I say this because you never know what questions they're going to ask you. In one interview many years ago, I was asked who the police chief was. Needless to say, I didn't know. I didn't do my homework. I didn't get the job. The more you know about that police department, their philosophies, and the area, the better off you will be if that surprise question does pop up. So let's talk about how they normally grade or review your interview. Usually, with each question, they rate your answer on some form of grading scale. Now, this could be a scale of 1 through 5, or it could be through categories of unacceptable to acceptable to excellent. How they determine that grade is usually defined by hitting certain talking points. For instance, if they ask you, what have you done to prepare yourself for a career in law enforcement? To hit a 3 or an acceptable mark, you may be required to talk about ride-alongs or education or something to that effect. To hit an excellent mark, you might have to talk about volunteering at an agency. There is usually a list of talking points listed on the interview paper to ensure that you hit them and you receive the proper score. That being said, do not give short 3 or 4 word responses. You will never hit your talking points. I want you to think speaking in paragraphs. Think narrative, right? Giving a narrative. Give a complete narrative response to any question that they ask you. Now, I'm not suggesting that you ramble nonsense. Your answers have to be well thought out, and they have to be intelligent, and they have to be correct. But the more you speak, the better chance you have of hitting those talking points, the better chance you have at getting that higher score. And you'll come across as articulate rather than some dope who's out there looking for a job. I'm going to give you a list of questions you might be asked. Now, I'm not going to give you the answers because if you can't do your own research, this might not be the job for you. However, I will give you a formula on how to answer these questions. Why do you want to be a police officer? When answering this question, articulate why you want to be a cop. A response like it's a steady paycheck or it looks cool will most likely fail you. I would fail you. I want you to talk about what garnered your interest. Was it a childhood experience? Do you feel a duty to serve? If so, talk about it. Don't just talk about it. Explain. Again, don't give short responses. Explain why you want to be a police officer. Thoroughly talk about that childhood experience or that duty to serve or that duty to give back to the community, right? That duty to make an impact on crime. I want you to speak in a narrative. Again, the more you talk about, the better. A response like, I want to give back to the community might be a good response, but if that's all you say, you're not going to stand out. Give a narrative on why you want to give back to the community. You may be asked, why should we hire you over the other applicants? This is not the time to be shy or humble. This is when you kick that door open, you walk right up to that panel, and you tell them why you are the best person for the job. I want you to list your accomplishments, your education, your strengths, your honesty, your personality traits, anything that puts you on top of that scorecard. At this point, I want you to brag. It's okay. You may be asked to define community policing. It's 2023. Every agency in the nation has no choice but to live on the community policing models. So you should know that definition. Study the philosophy. Don't give a canned response. Thoroughly understand what the definition of community policing is. You will most likely be asked a question regarding integrity. Something like, you saw your partner break the law or you saw another cop do something unethical. Now, contrary to what CNN and the New York Times will tell you, our job is not to cover that shit up. 1% of every organization is bad. Doctors, store clerks, salesmen, firefighters, construction workers, cops, defense attorneys. Well, maybe with defense attorneys, it's like 80% bad. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously, we don't want corruption. So the right answer is never to not report it. Keep that in mind. That being said, at the end of this video, I'm going to teach you how to crush that type of question if it comes in the form of a scenario-based question. You may be asked to discuss your strengths or weaknesses. If so, confidently talk about your strengths and how it's going to help you as a police officer. If they ask you to talk about your weakness, please don't say you work too hard or you love too much. I need you to be honest about your weakness. We all have them. Then, and this is very important, make sure that you explain how you've beaten that weakness and what steps you've taken to overcome those weaknesses. That's very important. At the beginning of this video, I told you I would give you a blueprint to help you crush any scenario-based question. Let's do it. I want you to write down or memorize the following 3 letters. PRF. Problem, resolution, and follow-up. Now, under the problem, there's identifying the problem, explaining why it's a problem, resolving that problem, and then the follow-up. It's very important that when faced with a scenario-based question, you follow this rule. This blueprint has helped me tremendously in promotional exams and during police oral board interviews. I've also seen on interviews that I've sat in on that the folks who come close to this blueprint are usually the ones that score the highest. So when we talk about the problem, what I want you to do is focus on identifying the problem, how you identify the problem, and why it's a problem. Focus on identifying the problem, how you identify the problem, and why it's a problem. Then, when we focus on the resolution, you have to focus on how we're going to solve the problem, how we resolve that problem. Finally, when we talk about follow-up, and this is something that I see a lot of people fail on, they don't talk about the follow-up. What I want you to do is explain how we're going to follow up on the problem that we just resolved. Let me give you an example. Let's assume you've just been given the following scenario in your oral board. You're out on patrol and you see a vehicle swerving in and out of the lanes. You observe some other violations that give you reason to believe that the driver is intoxicated. You pull the vehicle over and you realize that the driver is the mayor of your city. As you conduct your initial introduction to the mayor, you realize that he is slurring his words, his eyes are bloodshot, and he is in fact intoxicated. What would you do? If you were to answer this scenario correctly but did not follow the blueprint I just gave you, you might score well, but you're not going to excel. Following the blueprint I just gave you, this is how I would answer it. First, I'm going to talk about the problem. And I'm going to say something like, the problem I have here is I just pulled the mayor over and he appears intoxicated. The reason why that's a problem is not only is he breaking the law, not only is he held to a higher standard, but he's also putting other people's lives in danger. The other problem I'm facing is depending on how I handle the situation, the department could receive some political backlash. Now let's talk about the resolution. First and foremost, I'm going to treat the mayor like I would treat any other citizen, no more, no less. If I suspect that he's driving under the influence, I'm going to conduct roadside sobriety tests. And if he fails the test and I have probable cause to believe he's intoxicated, I'm going to place him under arrest. I'm also going to call my supervisor to the scene so that he's fully aware of what I observed, what I've done, and what I plan on doing. Now let's talk about the follow-up. Finally, I'm going to ensure that my paperwork is correct and that my supervisor has all of the necessary information so that he can make the proper notifications. This concludes my answer. Now, you could have responded with, well, I'd call my supervisor and then I'd proceed with an arrest if I had probable cause to do so. This is actually the same answer I just gave. However, using the blueprint, you show the panel a lot of different things with the same answer. Number one, you've shown that you can articulate properly to the oral board, which is extremely important, especially in our line of work. You show that you have great communication skills, again, extremely important. And you've also shown that you can identify a problem and work through that problem with the proper outcome. Additionally, you've shown that you're the type of person who will follow up on your tasks. I can assure you, if you use this blueprint in any scenario-based question, police or not, and you answer the question properly, you will stand out tremendously over the other applicants. You're going to score much higher. Good luck.